Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Becoming Limitless. Today's guest brings a perspective on vitality and longevity that is rarely discussed, the view from reproductive medicine. Joining us is Dr. Labib Ghulmiyyah, an OB-GYN whose work extends beyond pregnancy and women's health into the deeper biological processes that influence energy, hormonal balance, and long-term well-being across the lifespan. Now, reproductive health is often the first system to signal that something is off, whether through hormonal imbalance, fertility challenges, menstrual changes, or complications during pregnancy. In many ways, it can offer an early window into future health outcomes, long before chronic disease appears. Now, Dr. Labib has developed what we call vitality formula, aimed at addressing the underlying factors that influence reproductive health, energy, and resilience in both women and men. Today, we will explore how fertility and hormonal health connect to longevity, why vitality appears to be declining earlier in modern society, and how individuals can protect their health in an environment that increasingly challenges optimal well-being. Dr. Labib, is such an honor to have you.
Dr. Lee, thank you so much for having me. We've been waiting to do this for a while, and
Yes.
it's really a pleasure being here. And I'm so ready to discuss everything you talked about and try to give people as many tips as possible. Although there's a lot of things we don't know, and we're learning as things are
Exactly.
evolving. But again, thank you so much for hosting me, and I'm looking forward for today.
It's my pleasure. I've been really looking forward to this too. Now you're joining us all the way from Miami today, so thank you for making the effort to do that. I really appreciate it. So let's dive into it. As you know, these are like shorter episodes for people to get as much information as possible in the shortest time possible. So as an OB-GYN yourself, your care for patients across life stages, correct? How early can reproductive health reveal future risks such as metabolic disease, cardiovascular issues, or accelerated aging?
Yeah, this is so important. Seeing women across ages and seeing different types of disorders. And if we start, for example, in adolescence or even before, like precocious puberty, where puberty starts earlier, or we start seeing younger girls having irregular periods, weight changes, and we lump all these sometimes into a diagnosis called polycystic ovaries, which if you look at the word, it describes a reproductive problem that the ovaries has or their ovaries have cysts in them. But actually, the problem is not the ovaries themselves. The problem is a metabolic problem. So here you start seeing, for example, PCOS being kind of a sign of there is something going on metabolically in those girls, not only related to their periods or related to their fertility or to their weight. So that's the first sign. And like you mentioned, reproductive organs are probably the first organs in the body to get affected by how we live in our lifestyle. So they can be a sign. Then move on, we say, let's say a woman gets pregnant, she develops gestational diabetes in pregnancy, and that's a sign that she could develop it later on. She develops preeclampsia, which is a condition where high blood pressure starts and they start losing proteins in the urine and all of those things that happen. It's called preeclampsia. And this is actually a sign women that have preeclampsia are prone to develop cardiovascular disease in the future. Delivering preterm on its own, it's probably a state of inflammation that's happening, and those women also are prone for cardiovascular metabolic problems later on in life. So all these signs that we think are from the reproductive organs are actually signs that there's another internal system that's telling us be careful, or it's kind of alarming us. That's the beauty of reproductive organs, that they can help us kind of predict, or they're a window for our future health.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a part of a whole system. So if there's one part that is not doing well, it's usually indicating that there's something not going as well as it should be in the rest of the system. And
If you
now
think
we're
about
focusing.
it, sorry to interrupt. If you think about it, like from the evolution standpoint, yes,
Mhm.
the reproductive organs are important for fertility and having kids and reproducing. So when the body is under stress for any reason, whether it's chronic stress in life, whether it's another disorder, the first thing that gets affected is our fertility. So it's the last thing we need to think about is to reproduce. We want to make sure we feel better, we take care of our health and our kids, so that we don't think about having another baby at this point, for example. So that's why fertility gets affected first, because it's kind of a secondary, let's say, um, mission of the body is to reproduce. So we only want to reproduce when we are in the perfect health, in order to have perfect kids or the healthiest possible, so that they don't have problems. So if you think about it from that standpoint, from the evolutionary standpoint, is we want to take care of our bodies, and then fertility or reproducing becomes the secondary mission to the body.
Yeah, especially, being in constant like sympathetic mode also, and the stress that is going on, it's affecting so many people. And we don't, the body doesn't tell the difference if it is, being in real danger, or if it is, all of the pressures that we're surrounded with. Um, so yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. And the body needs to feel safe in order for it to reproduce. That makes perfect sense. Now I know that we've started with women, but later on in the episode we will touch on men too, because you work with both. And
Absolutely.
obviously this is very important, and I'm seeing it with a lot of people that I'm working with, coaching or optimizing at the moment. One of the main issue is fertility, and I'm seeing it in young adults, in young couples that are in their late 20s, or mid 20s even. And because of trauma, because of all sorts of different things. And obviously I pass these on to people like yourself and other experts, to kind of help with that area specifically. But the baseline problem is exactly what you just said, so you covered it perfectly. Now, one of the areas that I cover is biological aging. So I work on reducing or slowing down biological aging, myself and everyone that I coach. Do you think that fertility, or do you consider fertility in both women and men to be proxy for overall health and biological age?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's so funny. I just, was giving a lecture last week about this, and how, fertility, meets longevity. So they are kind of, they come together. Yes, the more you optimize your health, the better, your fertility outcome will be, the pregnancy outcome will be. However, we have to be realistic. There's a certain age, when it comes to women and even men, where, the body would want to stop reproducing. But again, that's not the whole story. The ovaries or the testes, they produce those sex hormones, and those are not only important to reproduce, but they're important for our vitality, for how we feel, for our libido, for our mindset, for our everything. On top of that, they do affect our biological age. We know the later you become menopause, the probably the better it is for your heart, for your bones, for your metabolism. By trying to optimize, let's say, the ovaries or even the testes in men, we're actually probably increasing the ovarian age, because every organ has a biological age, and the full biological age of the person. And therefore, prolonging the time to become menopause, we are probably will be improving their health span, but more importantly, also maybe their lifespan. But again, women, for example, that smoke or are not healthy, they're gonna become menopaused early, and then we're gonna see more cardiovascular disease, more bone loss, more diabetes in those women. And same thing for men. In men, it happens a little bit later on, but we're seeing a lot of low testosterone in men in their 30s. And this is because of the lifestyle, unfortunately. And I think the human body is not made to work 12 hours a day, not made to be bombarded with, dopamine continuously. There's a lot of things that changed, and that's why we're seeing this happening earlier. But I think the goal and what you are doing is prolonging the time to become menopause, or for those ovaries to stop working, not only to improve fertility, that's one of the things, but also to improve biological age and health span.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole system thing, as we said at the
Yeah.
beginning. And I think that's really important for people to understand that everything in our lives can impact different biological functions across the board, be it toxins at home, be it mold, be it stress at home, be it trauma, be it a toxic partner, be it all of these different things influence all these different sort of processes that are happening continuously in this amazing organ, the whole human body. It's phenomenal to think about. Now, I want to move on, and hopefully we can touch a little bit later on testosterone, because obviously this is a huge topic, especially in a Middle East, and there's almost every other person that I come across or comes to me for advice or consultation are either on TRT or coming off it or trying to come off it, or they've been advised one way or the other, and I'd love to kind of spend just a few minutes talking about that, but I would love first to know about your vitality formula. Ever since I've read about that, I thought it was fascinating, and I'd love to know a little bit more about what you do with this.
Yeah, first, I mean, it's not a supplement or it's not a medication. I called it formula because it's kind of a process. And actually, it came out of, personal experience as well as what I was seeing in the clinic. So I had a lot of patients coming in and telling me, I'm fatigued. And whenever a patient tells you fatigue, it's such a broad, symptom. As physicians, we're trained in taking care of, acute things, and we're great at taking care of diseases themselves. But when it's fatigue, which can be part of many disorders, it could be from your lungs, from your heart, from your blood, from your gut. So it can be many, many things, from your hormones. So that diagnosis used to scare me. It's like, how can I help this person? Fatigue. And then I went through huge burnout with the whole, situation that happened in Lebanon, and then I had to move out. Like a lot of, and millions of people that went through. But I started noticing even my close friends that are very successful people, they're complaining of, fatigue. I blamed it maybe on the situation. I blamed it on maybe the COVID pandemic. But there is something going on in the world today that is affecting everybody. And that diagnosis of fatigue like intrigued me. And I started digging more and more. And why are people fatigued? And I noticed there's many causes. But to be able to solve this problem, you cannot work on all those problems. So the vitality formula is a process where we first try to identify what's the major thing that's causing those symptoms. Is it your hormones? Is it toxins? Is it your work environment? Is it your home environment? Is it whatever things you are doing? You're not working out, you're eating wrong, you're sleeping, which I think is the huge major, cause. So we kind of identify where's the weakest point or the weakest link and work on those things. So that's the formula that I think works best. You cannot just start optimizing sleep, exercise, diet all at the same time. I think people get overwhelmed and they will not be consistent in doing that. So by just targeting one thing at a time, and that might take time. It might take 3, 4 months, 6 months to optimize your sleep. Once you're done with sleep, then you can move on to maybe diet and exercise. And of course, you can do baby steps in each of those. But the process in the beginning is to really identify what's causing it. And it might not just only be blood testing. It might be, further diagnostic tests. And it can be just sit down with the patient or sit down with yourself and try to see what am I doing wrong today. You don't have to do extreme biohacks and all that to feel better. You might do those, actually, it might make you feel worse. It might add more cortisol and stress to your body. So this is how, the formula kind of, came to life based on what I went through and what I was seeing in clinic. And I feel it's a worldwide pandemic, is this, fatigue, you want to call it fatigue, burnout, exhaustion, whatever the word is. But there is something that is triggering this, or multiple things, and approaching one thing at a time and taking your time in doing this, resetting your life, resetting your nervous system without affecting your life, because you're used to a certain routine. You don't want to completely break it and become, let's say, this boring person, for example. And so you really want to do things in baby steps while maintaining your social life, which I think is also one thing that we are missing today. People are so busy that you notice the whole day passed and you haven't spoken to a friend, or you barely spoke to your spouse, and you came and you had dinner and you fell asleep. So that's also super, super important. So that's how it was created, and I still use that framework in every single disorder I encounter in the clinic or even in life.
So it's the fundamentals basically. So it's you and I preach
Absolutely.
the same language. So the fundamentals are absolutely key, and then you tweak later on. And I think that's very, very important. And I love the name because I always say, as I grow older in chronological years, and I'm able to kind of control my biological age, I'm pairing wisdom with vitality, because vitality, you don't miss it until it's gone. You
Exactly.
don't realize how important it is until you start feeling foggy in the middle of the day, not having energy to go up the stairs, and these things creep up on you because of lifestyle, because of external influences that you were not paying attention to, because of the world is always in some sort of a turmoil, you know?
Exactly. And people, I think, are obsessed in living longer. And I think that's not the purpose. The purpose is not to live longer. You don't want to live long but with no vitality. On the contrary, we want the vitality to be there, like you are doing, optimizing the basics to enjoy life. And yes, whatever years you can add, that's great, but you want to add those years to be in a healthy way, with good vitality, enjoying your family, your friends, and enjoying life at the end. And there's so many nice things in life that you can enjoy. Unfortunately, there's also very bad things happening all the time. But I think concentrating on the vitality now, living the moment, improving that part, uh, it's way more important than living an extra 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Okay, so this will segue perfectly then into my next question. So for women, as we said earlier, that are in their 20s and 30s, that you and I both, and my clients and your patients, we're seeing this continuously, that people having issues with their hormones, with their sleep, with their stress, with and overall well-being. What advice do you normally give to young women in order to preserve the long-term energy, and to preserve their fertility for as long as possible, and to push menopause as far as possible? What sort of
Yeah.
advice would you give for anyone that is watching, listening right now about that?
First of all, I ask them to seek help. Of course, at the end, they know their body better than anyone else. So when they come to the physician, on average, we spend whatever, 15, 20 minutes. We're not going to know everything about the patient. So, make sure they kind of summarize their life in a way so that they can explain those to the physician. But again, I don't think it's enough to spend 15 minutes with the person. Um, so first of all, I think seeking the right help, asking the right questions, being curious, being wanting to get to the bottom of this problem. So if they come to me and I do those tests and I tell them those are normal and they're still feeling fatigued, just leave me and go to another physician. Another physician help you. If that physician can't help you, either seek a third person. It might be multiple people. It might be not only physician. It could be a physician. It could be a coach. It could be someone else that's been through it. Kind of do your investigation. Keep asking why until you find this main cause. It might be multiple causes, but at least find the main cause. So that's my advice: is to not just accept the truth. Oh, I'm getting old, I need to be fatigued, and that's it, I'm doomed. Or I have painful periods, and my grandmother had painful periods, let me deal with it. Or I have irregular periods, or all my family are overweight, I should be overweight. Never stop there. If you're not feeling good about a symptom, seek help. Try to investigate as much as possible until you get to the root cause of the problem. uh, that's, I think, the best advice I can tell people. And it took me 45 to 50 years to really like find out, like, why am I feeling that way. Before that, I was maybe doing band-aid treatments and trying to feel better and give myself more energy, but that was short-lived. And until I found out why this is happening. So always ask why, be curious, and never be satisfied with one answer. And I know today AI is at everybody's fingertips, but Also use AI in a smart way, as a complementary thing to your questions, and to help also your physicians or whoever is helping you discover what's going on with it. But it could be, like you said, it could be a toxin. It could be any type of toxin, whether chemical, whether mold, whether digital toxin, whether a financial toxin, whether it could be your hormones, it could be your gut, it could be something related to the cellular. So we think about the cells more than just the organs. Organs are made of cells. So we have to think about why my mitochondria are damaged. How am I damaging them? Is it because I'm exposed to EMF all day long? Is it because I'm not, moving? I don't have enough muscles. My insulin is high. So there's so many things. Simplify it, ask why, and I think that's the advice I can give people.
I think it's awesome. It's awesome. I would just add one more thing to this, is that what is really important, and this is from my own journey, and I believe you went through the same thing, is that it is a journey. Remember, it is a
Yes,
journey. It's not like there's an
exactly.
on and off switch. Now I feel foggy, now I don't feel foggy. It is a constant battle that you
Hmm.
have. Not a battle would be, sounds like negative, but it's a journey. Health is a journey. It's not, there isn't a place that you're going to get to and you say, that's it, I'm okay now. It's always an effort about every aspect of your body and your mind in order to stay in the best possible shape.
And at
To
every
experience,
every every decade of your life, you should actually, optimize things in a different way. What a 25-year-old can do cannot be done at 60. I mean, let's be realistic. You cannot have, also a pregnancy when you're 25 versus when you are 50. I mean, yes, we can improve, prolong things, but the body's so smart and so intelligent, it will, channel its energy to what you are needing right now. And then again, we're created by God, and I think that's what, you know we cannot like force things. Things have to, go through their natural process, but we can improve them. That's I think the goal of things, and that's why you said it's a journey and it changes from one decade to another. um, that's super important. So what you do in your 20s or what works for your neighbor doesn't work for you. We are made genetically different. We're very bio individual. So again, don't take whatever supplement your neighbor is taking because now she or he is looking nice because she's taking those peptides or supplements. They might not work for you. So you have to be careful by, how to stack things, how to stack supplements. So always talk to people that have experience, that have, more education and those certain. And again, physicians like myself, we don't know a lot of things. I mean, I'm not an expert in, let's say, peptides, or not an expert in stem cells. And so people come and ask me about those, and I don't know, like, things. I have limitations. Although, the podcast called Limitless, yeah, but we at the end, we have, limits to what we know. And I think, people should ask and reach out to people and think about themselves as individuals, and not to be, taken by the fashion or by the trends today.
yeah, exactly. And this is the same in every in every section. Basically, you don't go to a car salesman to fix your car. Everyone has its
Exactly.
own
Absolutely.
its own expertise and its own knowledge, and we're always learning anyway. What you
Absolutely.
don't know today, you will know tomorrow. And my biggest mantra is I don't know what I don't know. So I'm always hungry for information and finding a little bit more about everything.
And
Um,
information changes. I mean, like, you have people telling
yeah,
you, now, okay, now you're back to talking about creatine. Okay, we used to take it like in the 90s. Now it's back. Is it just because people are selling? Is it a marketing thing? Also, the information that we're bombarded with, we have to take it with a grain of salt. We have to think about it. And not everything that's out there today is gonna be, beneficial in the future. It might show, studies might show that it's going to be different. So it could be studies that were done. It could be also, world experience and what we're seeing in people. Because a lot of things we might not be able to study every single peptide or every single supplement or the interaction among them. So things do change, yes. And I have patients telling me, oh, but 5 years ago you told me, not to take hormone replacement. Now you're telling me to take hormone replacement. What happened? Like, why did you change your mind? Did
right.
someone pay you to change your mind? So no, it's an evolution of things, and I think we have to have an open mind whether you're a patient or even a physician or a professional person that deals with healthcare on a daily basis. You have to have an open mind, and things do change. Yes, absolutely.
I think what's missing in the world almost consistently at every stage is common sense.
Exactly.
So yes, obviously we're always learning, things change, but we have such short memories that we forget that we've seen this over and over and over again. That's one.
Exactly.
Two, we put things in our mouth without, like, again, not using common sense of saying, okay, so where is this coming from? Where was it made? Did I read the label on it? Is there any contaminants in it that I'm putting in my body? Not because of, so there are basic questions that we could ask about the stuff that we're learning from, that we're using, that we're hearing about, that are common sense. So I think exercising common sense is super important.
Yes.
I want to move on to something that is obviously, very happy about the fact that it's gaining a lot more attention, which is menopause and this whole pre-menopause, post-menopause kind of journey. And what I would love from you is to um, because obviously menopause is not just about the person. Obviously it's about the family, it's about especially the partner, and it's super important. So for men, how would you talk about menopause to men? Obviously from your own patients, I hope that sometimes they bring their partner for you to kind of at least help them understand what is going on in their partner's life and what is it that he can do about that sort of experience that she's going through. So how would you describe menopause for men?
I think this is so important for men to know women and
Yes,
women to know men.
right.
And one thing that struck me one time, I had this patient telling me, and I started hearing this over and over again. As soon as I hit, let's say 48, 49, I was looking at myself in the mirror and I'm feeling this is not me. Like like how I interact with people, how I feel, my sleep, how I look, my body's changing. It's like I did not recognize myself. So even the patient herself is feeling there's this, change. So if the partner doesn't understand this, then it could be a problem. It could be a problem in the relationship. It could be a problem at the workplace. Remember, women now constitute almost 50% of the workforce. So if she is not feeling well, she's having hot flashes, she's not herself, she's not going to be able to perform at work. And we know a lot of women, run big, companies, and on top of that, they have their family and they have to take care of their parents also at the same time. So they have multiple tasks. And if they are not feeling well themselves, how can you take care of all of those tasks? So it's very important for men to understand women and women to understand men, because men also go through, low testosterone. Like you said, it's becoming a problem. They are stressed at work. They're also bombarded by the same environment as women. So they can also go through those changes. Same thing in pregnancy. I tell my pregnant patient that the partner should be part of the journey. First of all, he gives half of the genes, so he has half, of the baby. Yes, she carries the baby and gives the baby a lot of the uterine environment, but also the delivery process is so tough. The postpartum, so the partner should be partnered in all of those, you know. Stages of life, but specifically menopause, because menopause, like you said, it's a transition. It's not like overnight thing. So it happens over time, and men should know that these are real physiological changes that happen when your estrogen drops or starts fluctuating, your progesterone starts fluctuating, and these are the sex hormones that the ovaries secrete. You will have those symptoms of sleep, concentration will be lacked, no energy, maybe their libido, which can affect their sexual life. So you have to be understanding and go through this and not just stigmatize it. Like, remember in the past, any patient that would, be having a period, people would make jokes that she's having PMS symptoms and make it as if it's a joke. And this is a real thing. Women go through premenstrual, symptoms or syndrome that, things do change. And same thing happens in menopause. So we have to be understanding. Otherwise, the relationship, could break, and that can cause problems. So I absolutely believe that we should be understanding of each other and think about it from the physiological standpoint. So this is a real thing. Don't just dismiss, like, even physicians sometimes dismiss patients. Oh, you're fatigued. We're all fatigued. You don't have to. Oh, you just had a baby. It's normal to have postpartum depression. Don't worry about it. This dismissal, I think, is a key component to relationships, in any sort of relationships, whether at work, at home, or in the clinic.
Agreed, and I think men, they could go really wrong if they dismiss these things, because it's
Absolutely.
not just these experiences, these really uncomfortable experiences that the individual is going through, but also physically that person is changing, gaining weight, losing bone density, because of the
Muscles, yeah. Yeah.
muscles also, because of the hot flashes. She doesn't sleep well. When she doesn't sleep well, she wakes up, and then the cycle continues and continues. And if she's irritated, if she's uncomfortable, perhaps a little support from our side would go a very long way. So
Absolutely.
it's a journey that we go, and men go through their own andropause, as you mentioned, and we go through something similar, but it's not to be compared. So it's a very different thing, and it happens over a long period of time, and even later in life and things like that. This is really, really good advice, and I think the more men get educated about the transition, this really important transition that takes this person from a mother to a mother plus a carer of grandchildren, and
Absolutely.
a new phase of life, and all of that other beautiful stuff that happen. It's a beautiful transition into something new and wonderful, as
You
another stage.
reminded me of something. You reminded me of something funny. Like several years ago, when I was back in Lebanon, I used to go to my high school and give those talks to boys actually about puberty, about the changes that happen in our body. And of course, the class used to be divided into girls and boys. They were never like together, so it was a different setup. But one time, this boy, 12-year-old, he raised his hands like, "Okay, you're telling us about how our body changed. We see this, we don't care. Tell us about girls. I want to know how girls' body changes." Like, I think it was more of a curiosity, but this is so right. We should learn about each other. Men should know about women, and women should know about men. I think that's super important, and not stigmatize things. But you just remind me like how he raised his hand after like an hour of me explaining, like, we don't care about our puberty and how our voice changes and our body. Tell us about girls. So
Yeah,
it was
that's
it
a
was
clever
funny.
boy there. That's a
Yeah,
clever
yeah,
boy.
exactly, exactly.
All right, so let's move on to men a little bit more right now. We'll wrap it up very soon. I just want to help to really explain, or for all of us to understand, what does it mean to get on TRT, and who should get on TRT? Yeah, from a male perspective. As we mentioned a little earlier, quite a few men, even in their early 30s. I have a few clients at the moment that are in that stage, and one person in particular, he was having sleep issues. He runs a huge company. He obviously has stress, etc. And he went to, I don't know to which doctor he went to. I didn't go into that so much into that history. But one of the first things that they've subscribed for him, because his testosterone was a little low, is to put them on TRT. And it was very surprising for me that happens. And I don't think he was told, what does that mean when you go on TRT? And how reversible is that process? And what does it mean for your whole life? So please walk us through the absolute facts of what that is once and for all. So men, when they're making decisions of actually taking testosterone, what does that mean, and when they should take it?
So this is a super important question, and like you mentioned, testosterone levels are dropping. We're seeing, lower testosterones at a lower age than, let's say, 40 years ago, which is affecting, sperm counts and fertility. We know that. However, like jumping directly to TRT is actually a bit dangerous, because at the end, you are just replacing the hormone that's low. And I think it's very important first to find out, why is your testosterone low? What are you doing wrong? So you could be, overweight, you could be not working out. just by taking TRT, yes, you will feel better. But if your body is inflamed and you are still overweight and you're still drinking and still smoking, at some point, those hormones, when the cells are inflamed, the testosterone, it works intracellularly and it's not going to work anymore. And you're going to plateau and you're going to feel maybe worse later on. So jumping directly to TRT is definitely the wrong thing. And like you mentioned before, you have to start with the basics. You have to optimize your gut, optimize your muscles, optimize your sleep. Then, if your testosterone doesn't, go up to the levels that are optimal for you, again, it doesn't. A lot of people go by the number. Oh, my testosterone is like 150 or 300, and it's on the lower edge of the range, which is a huge range. They start taking TRT. No, like you can actually raise it more naturally, and you might raise it to 500, and it's optimal for you. You're sleeping well, you're concentrating, you have good libido, you have building. So it doesn't have to be a certain number. So don't go by the number, go by the symptoms. Don't jump directly to TRT without, working on the basics. Like if you're not sleeping well and you smoke and you drink, no matter how much TRT you take, yes, you will feel better, and then you're gonna eventually crash. On top of that, of course, TRT has side effects. We know it's safe. We used to worry about heart disease and stuff. Now there are a lot of studies showing that it's safe, but you have to take it under supervision. You have to know how to dose it, what type of testosterone to take, when to start it is very important. But I would never start it on someone who doesn't have the foundation of things, because stacking it with maybe peptides and other things, it might make things worse. Plus, you need to, make sure you optimize your electrolytes, your vitamins. So for testosterone to work, testosterone doesn't work alone. It needs, boron, it needs magnesium, it needs zinc. So you have to also know how to stack those together. So my advice to men, don't just because your neighbor takes testosterone and now he looks great and feels great and he's telling you I feel good, to jump directly taking it. Work on the basics. Even if you work on for 6 months, you might still feel, you know, low, and then yes, you could take TRT. But remember, TRT can be given in multiple ways, but it could affect your own production of testosterone, which, if you're planning on having kids or want, your fertility to stay there, you might not be able to if you're on TRT. There are other options, of course, that can help us raise TRT, I mean, raise testosterone without affecting fertility. We can get into those details later on, but it depends on where you are. But as a guideline, don't jump starting TRT without checking your lipid profile, your heart, working on your muscles, on your sleep, on your nervous system. Then, after 6 months, if you're still low and you're still feeling bad, although you've lost all the weight and you're still not there, then yes, it could be a push add on, depending on where you are in your life. But yeah, you are absolutely right. It's becoming kind of a la mode, like, oh, all the men in my gym are taking TRT, give me some TRT. It's not the right thing to do. It's only patching the problem, uh, and it's not the solution.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it depends on the age too. So,
Of
I
course,
see
yeah.
men in their 20s and 30s already taking, testosterone. And then the other thing that I think everyone should know, and hopefully you'll back me up on that, is that once you're on it, you're very difficult to get off it because your system stops producing it. So to actually, there is a clinical way of actually getting off TRT. So it's
Exactly.
not like you make the injection and then, one day if I don't want to, I'll stop that and everything will go back to, it's not that way. So can you just for like a minute or two, explain how can someone get off TRT or what
Yeah.
happens, when
Yeah,
that.
again, if you think about all our hormones, they're all commanded from, the glands in the brain, which, release FSH, LH, and all of that. So, and the way our hormones are secreted are usually in a pulsatile way. It's not like a continuous. So the body is very smart. Like, okay, for example, during the day, my testosterone is highest in the morning, then it starts dropping at night. So it follows kind of a circadian rhythm. Each hormone has a different rhythm, but it goes along with our nervous system. So injecting once a week testosterone, for example, might not be the true physiological way of doing things. And like you said, it will shut down your own production. And when you stop it abruptly, you're not going to be producing testosterone. You're going to feel worse than when you started before. So there are multiple ways of doing it, microdosing, taking it several times a week so that you kind of mimic as much as possible. You can never mimic the body, but to mimic the body in that way. So getting off of it is also a kind of way of doing it, to kind of slowly, lowering your dosages while you're doing it multiple times a week until, you reach a point where you give your body a chance to start producing their own, testosterone. So yes, tapering the testosterone is so important, as well as starting it and taking it. So it's very important when it comes to hormones. And plus you have to optimize your other hormones. You don't want to give very high doses, because testosterone can convert to estrogen, and it can has a lot of side effects in men.
Right.
So you have to
Right.
be
Right.
careful how to dose it, how to take it, and how to get off of it. So that's why I always seek the opinion of someone that has done this for years, not someone who just heard about it and telling you to take it. Because short term, yes, you'll feel great, but the goal is not only short term, it's long term. And if you want to get off of it at some point because you want to have babies, for example, now, so there is a way of tapering it slowly, so you will not shock your body and now, oh, suddenly I don't have testosterone anymore and I can produce my own.
Right. Right. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. I think we've covered so much in this episode. Like, it's been full with information for everyone.
I wish it was longer. We can,
I
talk
know,
more
I
and
know.
more. It was such
Hopefully,
a
we'll do
pleasure
more.
being with you. Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you. And I think
Pleasure.
once we get some more specifics, then we'll have more targeted episodes in the future, hopefully. But I want to thank you for the amazing information and the clarity of everything that you've just said. And hopefully, listeners and people that are watching will find these useful, and would listen to the sage advice that you provided today, and continue to work holistically on their bodies, and stop chasing hypes and trends and their neighbors, as you said. Thank you
I
so much,
fully
Dr.
agree
Labib,
with
for
you.
being here.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for having me. And Dr. Lee, I salute all the work you're doing, and keep up this amazing, work and awareness that you're doing on all the platforms. And it was really a pleasure to being with you. And hopefully we can do, more episodes in the near future. And again, hopefully we can see each other also in person next time.
Yes, I look
Yes.
forward to that so much.
Me too.
My
Me
regards
too.
to your family. Talk to you soon. Thank you, Dr. Labib.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you.